Welcome to Ecclesia Principles, a biblical strategy for believers to engage in God's design for government with Ray Eppard.
Hello, glad you could join us again today. This week, we're going to talk about some of the spiritual dynamics of government. Now, our text for this is going to be in Daniel chapter 10, and we're going to look at some other passages as well. But so often, people do not understand the spiritual dynamics of how governments work. Now, with this, let's go ahead and read Daniel chapter 10. I'm going to read verses 13 and 20. These two verses deal with some activity as a result of Daniel's prayer. Once we read it, I'll go over it a little bit more. But this week we're going to talk about what this teaches us and some other passages that identify some truths that we need desperately to understand. In Daniel 10:13, the angel Gabriel had appeared to Daniel as a result of his prayer, and he came to make him understand some things and show him some things. But Gabriel says in verse 13, "But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. And behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left alone there with the kings of Persia." Then verse 20, "Then he said to me, 'Do you know why I have come to you?'" Again, this is Gabriel speaking. "And now I must return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I have gone forth, indeed, the prince of Greece will come." Now, little background to this passage. The Israelites had been taken captive by the Babylonians. At this point, the Persians are in control. They are the world empire at that moment. Daniel was praying about the freedom of the Israelites. God had told Jeremiah that they would be in captivity 70 years. And Daniel had come to understand through Jeremiah's prophecies that framework, that time period. And so he began to pray for the fulfillment of their release. As a result of this, Gabriel, one of the archangels or chief angels of God, was sent to talk to Daniel. He says that the prince of Persia withstood him. And then in verse 20, he said he had to go back and fight, and that basically, paraphrasing it, he and Michael would defeat the prince of Persia. But once they defeated him, the prince of Greece would come. Now, part of what this tells us, and you can look in Ephesians chapter 6 as well, where it talks about principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. If you would, these princes, the prince of Persia, the prince of Greece, those are the spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. They are a part of Satan's structure. God has a structure. God has, maybe we'll get into it, but God, when he divided the nations at the Tower of Babel, in the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about that he did so according to the Ben Elohim. Now, King James calls it the children of Jacob. But when you look at the Greek, it's really referring to the angels. And with that, matter of fact, a lot of translations, if they have a center reference, will speak to that there. That God, at that point, established a structure on the earth, set an angel over every nation, and then there are those under them. There is a hierarchy, even on God's side. Satan is an imitator. He's a perverter. And so he took the system God had and he's perverted it. So if you would, as a matter of fact, Daniel 12, Gabriel calls Michael the Prince of Israel. In other words, Michael is assigned to protect Israel. That is his, and that's his nation. And if you would, again, all nations have that. But we have a dual structure between God and the devil with their hierarchy. There is a spiritual kingdom over every nation. It begins at the top, if you would, with spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. And then there are principalities and there are powers. And there are also the rulers of the darkness of this world. We'll get into that possibly. I'm not sure. But we need to understand this dynamic. And we'll talk more about this because ultimately, God and the devil both work through human governments. God's structure and Satan's structure works through human governments. Human governments are the focus of their work. Stay with us and join us again tomorrow.